Welcome to the Truth Over Facts podcast. I'm your host, Dill Baby, aka Dylan. This is my home dog, Ronnie. What's up,
What's
everybody?
up? What's up, deal baby? What's going on, everybody?
Not much. We're trying this new thing out. We're trying to do everything we can possible to set this crap up, but we're not a nerd. We're not nerds. So we're trying our best. So we'll figure it out and go from there. So
Yeah.
what bullshit happened today?
Joe Biden's house got raided again this morning.
Oh yeah, which house? I didn't know politicians had
I
multi-million
heard
dollar houses.
I heard it's the mansion that's closest to where he fell off his bike.
Oh, is that what it's known for when he fell off his bike?
Yeah, but they said that they didn't find anything there. So
I feel like they just give him popsicles and just like tell him to go like put Lincoln logs together and shit. Just like,
yeah,
so,
and
I
then
recently
they
seen that one video where all of a sudden he just like walks out of the White House and he like looks at the camera and he kind of waves a little bit, but then all of a sudden he just kind of like darts off and keeps walking into the grass. It's just such a funny
yeah, yeah, yeah.
what
Oh
a
yeah.
fucking world we live in. This is what we got to deal with.
And then they said, I guess they're not going to be moving the uh, other documents from his time as a senator that's at like the University of Delaware or whatever.
Yeah. I don't get it.
So,
Well, I don't get it. It's like every
yeah.
single president like steals shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
And
can't tell
it's
me Trump
also,
wasn't stealing a bunch of the silverware and shit.
yeah. Well, he doesn't really need to do that, dude, he's got money up the yin yang, dog.
Yeah, I've always said that. I said Trump is the only person that can walk into the White House and say, "Look at this dump."
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm trying to think what all happened this week. Didn't somebody famous die?
um,
Laverne and Shirley or some shit?
Laverne and Shirley, yeah. Yep. Um, yeah, what else? Well, there's more of that stuff on Ukraine. Apparently, there's like a Ukrainian oligarch that got arrested or some detained today by that Voldemort Zelensky clown because Biden has ties to this guy. Apparently, this guy was like a personal financier to Biden's son Hunter.
Oh yeah, you mean the bookie?
No, I don't. I forgot his name, but I know that Biden banned him
Oh.
from being extradited to the U.S. because he knows too much about what went on in Ukraine.
Right, they gotta knock him off. He's got a
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah. Well, apparently, uh, it's coming out um, that a lot of these Soviet era uh,
Change
biolabs
bastards.
were being funded by the U.S. There's like
No, I don't
46 of
believe
them.
it.
So pretty much all of like our weapons and all the money that we're sending over to Ukraine is to defend like these labs, these biolabs um, that the U.S. has been funding, and it's been going on. Well, the U.S.'s involvement with these labs has
Yeah,
been going
we
on
can't do
since
it on American soil. So if
2005.
you do it on piss poor third American countries, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. So
American
it pretty much
bastards.
it's pretty much the deep states corruption that is Ukraine. is the deep state's corruption.
Right, but I think a lot of people have a misconception. There's the deep state, and then there's also the shadow government. Like they're two different things. Like the deep state is just like all the crooks and shit like that, right? But then like the shadow government is like the NSA, the AAA, Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, that's another one. But it's all these different like the CIA and shit. But that's part of the problem. Like there's so many different agencies and they're so compartmentalized to the fact that they really don't even solve shit, right? I mean, there's covert things that they do where it's like, yeah, oh we stopped this from happening, but like, okay, you stopped. It's kind of like when Pablo Escobar and like all the cartels and shit are sending like coke mules over. Okay, you stopped 1 out of 20. Good for you. You know, like what do you want, a fucking medal?
Did you know that Pablo Escobar is the reason why there's hippos in South
Colombia.
America?
Yeah. Didn't he have them imported or some shit? They escaped his zoo.
Yeah, he had them imported. Isn't that crazy, dog?
I just watched that movie, American Made with Tom Cruise with what's the name? Benny Siegel or Barry
Yeah,
Siegel?
he's where he's like the pilot or something like that.
Yeah, he's a pilot for the CIA. Where essentially this is what I think his name is John Perkins. Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Where
Yeah.
like during the 70s, even before that, like during the Cold War, like the government would just create like shell companies, and they'd use these shell companies to like launder money and weapons, and like Barry Seal was part of the Iran Contra deal and stuff like that. But like I didn't know a lot about the Iran Contra thing back in like the late 80s with General Oliver North, I think his name was.
Okay.
But General Oliver North essentially it was kind of like we were swapping money to Iran covertly to get weapons, I think. And then we were taking those weapons and shipping them down to the or the Contras in Panama or some shit like that, Ecuador. And essentially, they were all just a bunch of like drunks and shit like that. Like, and then in the movie, we actually started Barry Seal and the rest of his crew of different drug smugglers and shit like that. Instead of flying guns and money and shit for the CIA, they actually literally started like illegally flying up these Contras to train in like Arkansas or some shit like that. But a lot of them just like scattered off and just like took off, so they had to hunt them all down and shit. so so it got to a point where like the CIA fucked it up so bad to a point where like General Oliver North called up Barry Seal because he had good relationships with Pablo Escobar and shit like that. But then, like, once Oliver North was done with him, he fucked over Barry Seal and, like, blew his whole entire cover. So then, like, the whole entire cartel was after Barry Seal and shit because of Oliver North fucking him over. But it was kind of funny because they're like, no, you're going to do this. Otherwise, you're going to jail. And he's like, okay, like, yeah, it's fine. But then they ended up realizing they just fucked him over, like, and they ended up getting like killed with the Uzi and shit.
Oh.
But no, like General Oliver North and shit, he did a lot of that crap. But like, I didn't know how intertwined he was because if you're a conspiracy theorist like I am and shit, I think it's called the King Alfred. Have you ever heard of anything called Rex 84?
No.
You should look it up. Rex 84 is essentially I think it was 1983 they came up with this, or 1984. It's called Rex 84, where essentially the continuity of government was created by any means necessary because during that time, like from the 70s and 80s, we were kind of like hijacking and throwing coups and shit in South America, like Panama and Colombia and shit like that, because it was all chaos during Pablo Escobar and shit. But we would send in our own false flags and shit like that. But Rex 84, I think it's called King Alfred conspiracy theory, but now it's like, like every other conspiracy, now it's conspiracy fact and shit. But what it was essentially that, like, due to the government, the US's intervention of all of these countries, that eventually, like, Americans would throw a revolution and realize, like, what's been going on. Like, you guys keep just overthrowing these third world countries and shit for your own benefits and for the corporations. So the government created Rex 84, which was a continuity of government where essentially all they get rid of the Constitution, habeas corpus, they can detain you. It's kind of like Gitmo, but not Gitmo, essentially. So, but it was going to be run by FEMA because essentially, what was FEMA? What's the acronym for FEMA? Like Federal Emergency something?
Management.
Yeah, management, some crap like that. But essentially, like Rex 84 was the purpose and the behind the scenes understanding of what FEMA was. Like FEMA was never created to actually fucking help people. It was, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, kind of cut your video out.
Sorry.
Oh. But it was created to, FEMA wasn't essentially ever created to actually help people out. It was actually created to like detain Americans who the government systematically through like code indexes and like if you were prepping shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what do you got all this ammo for and shit? You're buying it all in bulk.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like because you ever see the movie what the hell is it called? Seven with Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt. They're trying to hunt down a serial killer who kills on the seven deadly sins. Great movie.
If I have, it was a long time ago, dude.
Yeah, great movie. But anyways, in that movie, they're trying to find him, and Morgan Freeman as a detective is so smart. He goes like, "There's certain things that if you punch into the internet, it will red flag you, and it creates a whole entire index of you." So like in the movie Seven Deadly Sins, how to build a bomb kind of shit. These all things would red flag you, but there's only a certain amount because there's only a certain amount of books ever created that would teach you these things, right? So systematically, the system can narrow you down and determine if you're a threat or not because of systematically what you're trying to gain knowledge on, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of like Rex 84 was created for, but this is like 10 years before the movie 7 came out. So General Oliver North in the late 80s was part of this. He created it, the continuity of government. Well, during the Iran-Contra deal, when he was under testimony, right? Because I think it was like the House committee was trying to figure all this crap out. Like, what was Reagan going? But by the time Reagan was like going nuts and like getting dementia and shit, essentially Nancy Reagan was running the country. You know what I mean? She was just like putting a bib on him and shit. But
no.
Yeah, not a lot of people know that. Like Ronald Reagan, his first debate, he slaughtered everybody, kind of like how Trump did. But his second debate was so bad because his dementia started to come in, and people like it's kind of like Joe Biden. Like it's getting so blatant and shit. Like, come on now, somebody put him down a little bit. Like get him his applesauce. But that same thing happened with Reagan in his second term. But he finally got caught with the Iran-Contra deal in his second term. So it was kind of like, how do we kick the court can down the road by the time he can sail off into the sunset and everybody will just forget it.
Yeah.
But General Oliver North was under testimony, and the movie kind of goes into this, like American Made talks about Oliver North and like how kind of like he was a top dog general at the time, but he was kind of like a piece of shit because he was just so integrated in everything. but he
He was
was
doing
just
all
kind
the
of
dirty work.
exactly right. He was just a big giant cleaner for the army and the government. So he would
Yeah.
just like throw people under the bus and shit to clean crap up, you know. But he was under Congress in testimony, and one of these congressmen, I forget his name, but somebody, I think this is 87 this happened or 86, but a year like in 84 or 85, somebody wrote an article about how General Oliver North was part of this deep underground Rex 84 continuity of government by any means necessary. So this article came out in like the Miami Herald or some shit. One of these senators read it and was like, "What the fuck is this? Continuity of government? Like, what do you mean? Like, you're gonna kill everybody in order to survive? So the government has to survive by any means necessary." So he called out Oliver North when he was under testimony from like the House Judicial Committee or some crap. There's always a committee, right?
Yeah.
Anytime you do something illegal and you get caught, there's a committee, but nothing happens to you. But he asked Oliver North, like, "Hey, I'm very worried about this article that I read about the continuity of government, and that how you were a part of this whole entire Rex 84 was the code name, I think, of it. It went under a couple of different names, like I think Operation Garden Sweep or some shit like that was called. But the chairman, who's the one chairman for the Democrats before, like Jerry Nadler, was that his name or whatnot? The fat guy who lost all that weight and was like,
Yeah, Jerry Nadler.
yeah, Jerry Nadler. Yeah, he was,
farts in the.
yeah, he was farting and stuff. It was kind of like, yeah, his position at the time in the 1980s. He was in charge, right?
Yeah.
So this rogue senator called out Oliver North and was like, "Hey, I read about this article how you're trying to talk about rounding up Americans and doing away with the Constitution. I want to know if this has any merit." And Oliver North didn't answer. The head of the commission answered for him, which was kind of like one of those things back then where it's like, okay, this shit's real. Because the head of the commissioner was like, "Senator, I'm going to ask you very politely, that's a touchy subject and not to touch on it." And the senator was just kind of like, "Well, what do you mean? Like, I read about this and I'm very worried about it. I'd like to know, and I also think the American people would like to know about this." And the commissioner was like, "Once again, I'm going to tell you, you don't want to touch on that subject. If you need to touch on it, we'll talk about it in private. But I'm going to highly recommend that you don't talk about it under oath." And then, right, it was just kind of one of those things where it's like, "Oh, okay, it is real." You just gave it away, right? But yeah, American Made was a great movie because it shows like it touched on like some of that conspiracy crap in there, where like people back then didn't want to believe like the government was shipping in crack cocaine and shit like that. You know what I mean? To traumatize the African American communities and stuff. But they really were.
So did they go talk about it in private?
Yeah, well, essentially, it ended up becoming right. I think it's called the King Alfred. I forget what the hell the name of it. Hang on. I think it's called the King Alfred, where essentially it's essentially kind of like how they rounded up Japanese Americans during World War II, right? And put them in internment camps or something. Internment camps.
Yeah.
Because at that sense, when you're at war, like the worst enemy you can have is an internal enemy. That's why the Cold War lasted for so long, is because it was just kind of like, "Oh yeah, I'm your neighbor. No, I'm really a Russian," you know. So nobody trusted anybody. Well, the same premise was kind of like created in this Rex 84 thing, where they would use FEMA. Like, you've always heard the conspiracy theories of like the FEMA camps and shit like that, right?
Yes.
And like mass graves and stuff like that.
And
you kind of saw a lick of it during the whole entire COVID crap going on, right?
yeah.
they were just massively burning people, and it's just kind of like, oh, you don't get to see a body, it's just ashes now. Well, how do I know that's them? Well, you don't. That's the beauty of it, right?
Well, they said that there was like these like Walmarts that were shutting down or
Right,
whatnot, and then they
right.
were gonna
Certain
use those
things
for
are
like
going
FEMA
down where
camps.
it's just kind of like, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were just kind of like, but the whole entire movie was kind of good because it kind of touched on General Oliver North and how kind of like how involved of different things he was and shit like that. I was always intrigued by
Yeah.
it. Like check out Rex 84. That's always a good. I think it's called King Alfred Conspiracy, where essentially the government, in order to survive, as the system systematically breaks down, it will take any means necessary in order to survive. Like if it was a nuclear holocaust, they would quickly ship all the senators into those underground bunkers and shit like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's millions of miles of underground bunkers. That's why NORAD's in the Rocky Mountains and shit or whatnot. Whereas
Isn't there
while the rest of us,
isn't there like a train, like a some sort of like train that runs underneath like the the Capitol
I
for
would have
like
believed
for like
so. I would
the
believe there's
Congress?
some sort of connectivity within each individual monument that's very of national security kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like if a nuclear holocaust was coming and shit, like you'd only have a certain amount of minutes, right? So it's like either you got to go underground. It's not like you can jump in a helicopter and shit because you're going to be screwed anyways.
Yeah. Huh.
But it's just one of those things, like kind of like there's a couple of different code names. Oh God, I forget. There's a couple of them in Virginia. I think it's called like Raven's Claw or some shit like that.
Okay.
There's a couple of different secret bases that they built during the Cold War and shit like that, but they've kept them operational just in case and stuff like that. It's like kind of like that movie Lone Survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of like the whole entire premise of it. Like that was kind of like a premise of Rex 84 where like there needs to be continuity of government. So it's kind of like how the president dies, then it goes to vice president, they die, then it goes to House Speaker, they die. Who by the fifth president, you're not even relatives
Lone
anymore.
Survivor was the Navy SEAL movie.
No, what's the other one? Designated Survivor, I think it's called.
Mm.
But
Designated Driver.
yeah, I think it was Keeper Sutherland, not 24. 24 was where he was like a secret agent, but I think it's called like Designated Survivor or some shit like that, where he
So
was like,
where does like the president's like bunker, is that in Cheyenne Mountain?
yeah, Cheyenne Mountain, that's one of them, I think. No, essentially, it's just, I think it's more of kind of like a hive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where like it's just layer based, but at the same time, it has a central hub that can go from different shit to different shit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you just got all these bases everywhere and shit like that.
What do
Because
you
the
think
government,
is what do you
huh?
think's in Area 51?
What's in Area 51?
Yeah, what do you
I
think's in
think
there?
I think what's in Area 51 is probably more than likely just like I want to say like not necessarily like camouflage, but like updated technology that hasn't been explained yet, like kind of like refracting, kind of like um, goggles, kind of shit. You know what I mean? Like not like radar detective, but kind of like Hollow Man kind of shit. You ever seen that? Where you can put on a suit and go
Like Kevin
completely invisible.
Bacon?
Yeah, like Kevin Bacon.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
I don't think it's necessarily like aliens, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised because you would have to put. It'd be kind of hard to like put down all the gremlins and keep them
Yeah.
underneath. So you kind of like the smart thing would do is kind of like group them together into different areas.
Yeah.
Like you have all the alien spaceships here, then you have all the aliens here, right? You never want to have any breadcrumbs leading to something else.
Mm-hmm.
That would just be my point. You gotta separate everything, right?
Yeah. So you really think that there might be a Hollow Man suit?
Yeah, I think that because there's certain things where it technologically wise, I mean, we're not using any ray guns yet, right? So unless we're using satellites for warfare, but eventually we'll get to that point. But I also think at the same time, like the most deadliest thing to any human besides like viral would have to be like something you can't see, right? But it's
Yeah,
also
but now they have suicide drones, and looks like
yeah.
from a lot of people don't see those, and they're
I think
using them
like
in Ukraine.
yeah, you ever heard of Joey, not Joey Diaz. What the hell is Joe Rogan's other buddy? The
Joey
jiu-jitsu.
Chestnut?
No, uh, he's a little jiu-jitsu guy. I forget his name. But he came up with a good premise. He goes like, after World War II, which he's correct on, after World War II, the Russians and the Americans made a deal. The Americans
Mm-hmm.
get to keep all of the scientists, the German scientists, like Werner von Braun was a Nazi. He created NASA.
Yeah, yeah.
So we brokered a deal with the Russians after we won World War II. We get all the scientists. You get all the technology that the Germans were already working in.
Did Werner von Braun, did he have fencing marks on his face?
Did he have what?
Fencing marks on his face?
I think he did. I think that was, from my understanding of World War II, like fencing marks was a sign of courage and stuff through Nazis and shit, where it was just kind of like earning your keep kind of thing. That's
Really
why
scary looking, dude. Very intimidating looking.
all of them were, because I think like the scarring was just a natural kind of thing where it's just kind of like you get like getting circumcised, kind of cool, but at the same time you're kind of like I'm scared of. I don't think this is right.
Yeah.
But I think that it's just one of those things where like, because I saw that what do you call it, the I can never pronounce it right, Nuremberg trials.
Yeah, Nuremberg.
Yeah, you had all the Nazis and shit like that, but a lot of them didn't even go to jail and shit because they're like, all right, I'll break a deal with you. I'll tell you where the
Mm-hmm.
bodies
Yeah.
are. But during that, yeah, like that was the main thing with the Nazis was all those fencing. It was like a rite of passage kind of thing. Like if you had that shit, you were like the SS hardcore motherfucker.
Yeah. Because the what was it in World War II, or the the rise of like Hitler, um it was the SS, and then when the Conservative Party relinquished control over to Hitler, then Hitler, um what was it? He was,
German chancellor.
well, when he became German Chancellor, that's when the like the stormtroopers or whatever became
Yeah,
part of, you know, they all like merged into one, like all
yeah,
the branches of their military at the time.
yeah. And before his rise to power, he also had what were called the brown shirts, where essentially they were just like enforcers. They go to like kind of like a mega fucking rally and beat the shit out of people in the parking lot and stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
And
so
they had they had those kinds of people in the US uh up until World War II, and then Congress abolished them. So like there was like a legitimate like
American Nazi.
Nazi, Yeah, American Nazis, and they had like training camps throughout the U.S. There is one down the road from my house in Grafton.
Yeah.
I looked that up the other day, and then they had a big giant rally. What was it? I think it was like 1939. It was in Madison Square Garden.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it was like 20,000. It was like 20,000 Nazi Americans that showed up for that. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty crazy, dude.
Did you ever see that show Hunters that came out with Al Pacino? That's pretty good. It's about it's kind of like an alternative universe where like the main premise of it is like after World War II, show's called Hunters, but
Hmm.
like after World War II, all the Nazis brokered deals. Some of them brokered deals, and other ones just escaped into America.
Yeah,
So
and then like in the beginning of the show, it shows like they're having like a pool party or whatever.
yeah, that barbecue, and
It
the chick recognizes one of them,
Yeah, and then
the
he's
butcher.
like, "Huh, I don't know what she's talking about." Yeah,
Yeah, and he's like, "You
and
blew my
then
cover."
yeah,
He's like,
he's
"Just
like,
take some
"Damn it!"
ginger ale and we'll be fine."
Yeah, and he like just blows her brains out,
Yeah,
and then has to shoot everybody at the party.
yeah. He's like, "Damn it, you blew my cover. I told you you
Hmm.
didn't want no ginger ale."
How
But
many
that's a good
seasons
show.
of that show is there?
The
Just
second
one?
one just came out. The second one just came out because it's a pretty good show.
Fantastic.
I
No,
always like,
I seen it. I liked it. I thought it was a great show.
yeah, I always like those alternative path kind of things where it's just kind of,
Yeah.
remember Inglorious Bastards,
Hmm. But
where like,
there was another show that I believe that Amazon did.
yeah, Man in the High Castle.
Yes, that's a good one too. Yes,
Yeah, that's the one
that's
where the
about if
Nazis
the
took over.
Nazis won World War II. Yeah,
Yeah. All right, you
and
ever see,
it was just well, the United States was split up. The West was controlled by the Japanese, and then the East was controlled by the Germans.
yeah.
And then the neutral zone was like what, like Colorado, or wasn't it Colorado? It was like a neutral
Now,
zone or something.
could have been Iowa for all I care.
Yeah, but it
Did
was a pretty good series though. I like that.
you ever see the movie Iron Sky, where the Nazis are on the moon and shit?
No, I never seen that one. When did that come out?
That came out in like 2012. It's kind of like one of
Hmm.
those green screen movies where like
Mm-hmm.
90% of it, like what the hell? What's the one with Gwyneth Paltrow and shit and Angelina Jolie? It's called like fucking Air something tomorrow. Sky Cap.
Oh, Sky Captain America or something like that.
Yeah, it's all green screen, but they're looking all.
Yeah,
It's like Nevada and
I
shit.
didn't even bother watching that, dude.
No.
Didn't even bother. I was like, nah, this doesn't look that good.
Did you ever hear of Operation High Jump?
No, what is that about?
Operation High Jump was where there's always been like famous generals and admirals throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
So military wise, there was General Smedley Butler. I think he won the Medal of Honor 4 times.
He was in the Marine Corps.
Yep, yep. He was a Marine. He went into the China Boxer Wars, I think, and like
He
all
wrote
World
up
War
he
One.
wrote up the citation for John Basilone in the Pacific, the
Mm,
island hopping campaign. Yeah.
yeah, yep. And he was also led the industrial fascists of America during the Great Depression tried hiring him to lead a coup over FDR. Kind of, I read a book
Mm.
about it called The Conspiracy to Overthrow FDR or the White House,
Yeah.
where a bunch of fascist industrialists, which were essentially like Standard Oil and shit like that, because they hated FDR, because like fascist industrialists at the time, kind of like now, right?
Mm-hmm.
They thrive on desperation of workers because like they squeeze more profit out of everybody. The more people are desperate and the more they need them, the more they'll work for less. So they try to hire General Smedley Butler because I'll get to Operation High Jump, but it's kind of like the yin and the yang of it.
Mm-hmm.
They hired General Smedley Butler to overthrow FDR because the only way they could internally overthrow the government was by using ex-military who were screwed over from FDR because the veterans of World War One were promised payday 15 years after World War One.
Yeah.
Well, World War One ended in 1918. Okay, started in 1914, went to 1918, 4 years.
Smedley Butler fought in World War One.
Yep. So he was right there with them. So he wanted to lead the charge, and he was a very big advocate for taking care of the veterans.
Well, it
You
was
may,
also a different time for for high-ranking military officials back
yeah,
in
you
the day.
didn't.
A lot of those guys were out in the field, like out on the front lines with, uh, you know, a lot of the frontline guys. You know, a lot of the
Yeah,
higher ups were,
yeah,
and so a lot of those guys were actually respected
yeah.
by.
General Mad Dog Mattis and shit like that. He's another one.
Because you got to figure a lot of those guys on the front lines became a lot of those, you know, lower, just average Joe workers after,
Right.
some were successful, I mean, it's hard. I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to define somebody else's term as successful, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, yeah. Go on, dog. Go on.
All right. So Smedley Butler led all those World War One troops, and he kept telling them the government is going to take care of you. The government is going to take care of you. Well, then the Great Depression hit. Right? Everybody's fucking miserable except the bureaucrats, the politicians and shit, and the rich people, the ultra rich. They bought everything pennies on the dollar. So
Yeah.
all the World War One veterans were like, no, we want our money now. Well, at the time, Herbert Hoover sent up U.S. Marshals, and they ended up getting in a fight on the Capitol, I believe, on the very same Capitol steps, where Herbert Hoover was
it
like,
an insurrection?
essentially, it really was, but it was by veterans of World War One because they were promised to get paid, but then the government went bust, right? The whole system went bankrupt in the Great Depression, and they're like, well, what the shit? Like, we waited 15 years. Well, tell you what, you give us a small percentage of it now, just to make ends meet, and the government it was broke. It didn't have any money, and then FDR took over after that whole debacle, which is kind of one of the reasons why FDR lost was because of like Herbert Hoover was scarred from killing own World War One veterans because they were desperate, right? Tarnished his legacy and shit. So FDR ended up taking over. Well, the industrial fascists didn't like that, so they tried to hire Smedley Butler to overthrow him. They even tried to create a whole entire new thing besides the vice presidency. It was kind of like acting vice president behind the vice president. And I read this book on it where like it was pretty interesting because they were trying to like it's all from like Smedley Butler's point of view, like how we met on this day. Some random guy just shows up at his house and is like, "Hey, I want to talk to you." Because you got to remember, like Smedley Butler, he wasn't a rich guy. Well, once he retired, like you didn't get any benefits because the government went bust in the Great Depression, so he had to go do tours and shit all over the country.
Yeah.
But he was kind of like how Trump was. Like he amassed crowds like Trump because like people idolized him because he was a national hero at the time and shit. He fought, he earned his battle scars and stuff.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the front half of the 20s and 30s. The second half, the 40s and 50s, Admiral Byrd, I think his name, I forget his first name, but his last name is Byrd. He made a couple of tours down to Antarctica, and Operation High Jump was where Admiral Byrd took a couple of aircraft carriers, like 2,000 troops and 20 airplanes and one destroyer. And his mission was to go explore the Antarctica and to map it all out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, supposedly, this is kind of like all like conspiracy theory crap, but like supposedly when they got to Antarctica, they were in a battle with UFOs that came flying out of Antarctica. Whether it's hollow earth theory or what, right? Like people have always said the hollow earth theory is always in Antarctica, right? There's got to be a hole or an entrance to get into the hollow earth, the earth within the earth.
Yeah.
But there was supposedly a battle between Admiral Byrd and these flying saucers that came out of the ocean and stuff like that. And it destroyed a couple of aircraft carriers, and a bunch of men died, and they barely made it out of there. So Admiral Byrd went back and told everybody what the hell was going on. I think that was like after his second tour or some second exploration going down there. But he was another highly regarded admiral or general that where like it was kind of one of those things where he went through so much shit, he ain't lying.
Yep.
One of the conspiracies was that after World War II, a lot of the Nazis not only were integrated into America, some of them escaped to Argentina, and some of them also escaped to Antarctica because it was so inhospitable, nobody would ever look for them there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like one of the things that they were going after. That essentially, like, the only way that Nazis could exist still is like if they're in Antarctica kind of shit. You know what I mean?
So does this add on to the conspiracy that if there were Nazis that fled to Antarctica, then there were Nazis that are
My personal opinion, I don't
aliens?
think Nazis are anywhere but in Walt Disneyland.
Yes,
I
I
think
agree.
Mickey Mouse is a Nazi. I think Daffy Duck, I think he's a Nazi. I think Bluto the dog, I think he's a fucking Nazi.
Oh man. What's
It's a
the name
small world
of that
after all.
operation
It's a
again?
Nazi world after all.
What what's the name of that operation again?
Operation High Jump.
Operation High Jump.
Yeah, look it up. Operation Paperclip is the one where they took all the Nazi scientists, and integrated them into America.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because a lot of those Nazis ended up becoming part of NASA and shit like that, and they also created the Manhattan Project, I think.
Werner von Braun, the father of propulsion.
Yeah, aka Nazi lover.
Yeah. If you wanna be my lover, gotta get
Oh,
with my friends.
sure. He just got out before.
Who's that?
Albert Einstein.
Oh yeah, Albert Einstein. I wonder what it's like to have the intelligence that those guys had.
I
You
think
know?
you get mad pussy. I think you get laid a lot.
You think
Or
so?
not at all.
I would think that those guys are like too busy, like
I think Albert Einstein married his cousin or some shit, didn't he?
I have no idea, dude.
I don't know. They don't teach the real history in history class anymore. They teach you white history.
Now they teach you about how white people are bad.
Yeah. Who built Mount Rushmore? White people.
Oh, great. Tear it down.
Mm-hmm.
Tear it
Yeah,
down.
I actually believe Mount Rushmore was financed by the KKK. I really do think that's actually accurate.
Then it needs to come down for the
It
sake of
does. Yeah,
it
damn right.
doesn't need to be there anymore. I can't stand to look at that racist wall. It's so bad.
Mm-hmm. But first, before we take it down, we're gonna need your gun.
Yes. Turn in your guns. Turn everything in that can hurt somebody else.
Hey, hey, hey! Winter's coming. Get vaccinated.
Yep. Yep. Get your jab.
That's
Do the
what's
right thing. You're
remember it was like
saving lives. You're saving lives when you get the vaccine.
remember when it was called Omicron? And then what was the one before that one?
It was
AP2 or some shit.
C3PO.
Yeah, C3P dickhead.
BB8.
Yeah, BB8, BB8 COVID. And I remember at work, I'm always joking with some of the other conspiracy guys and shit. I go, COVID 2030.
That's when we'll be eating bugs. Actually, you can eat bugs now.
Yeah.
I just saw that they have like a snack that's got like crickets in it. Yeah, it's like disgusting.
Not any kind of crickets, Ronnie. Avocado crusted crickets.
Yes, injected with mRNA technology.
What a world we live
Actually,
in.
I heard that's what they want to do with with all the meat. They want to inject it with mRNA technology, dog.
What the hell do I want to really know? Like, if they're putting all the shit in our food, what do the rich people get? Like, just paste, toothpaste, and shit.
No, they get the wagyu and they still get
Yeah.
to live like kings, dude. They still get to live like kings.
I don't even think they eat food. I think they just eat stem cells and shit.
Those people are well. They look at humans as being the more technology and AI evolves, the less dependent they become on humans to do you know do work.
Hmm.
The stuff that pretty much AI is taking over. They don't need a human brain for anymore. Pretty soon that chat GBT thing,
Hmm.
they're saying that that's going to be like the new white collar, job destroyer.
Yeah, I think Chat GPT is just gonna get everybody pregnant. What are you gonna
Chat
name this new
OBGYN.
kid? I think we're gonna name him Chat GPT.
Chat OBGYN.
Yeah, Chat KY jelly.
Yeah,
Yeah, what a
that's
great
some
time to be
crazy.
alive. It's like it feels like I feel like I'm in a Fast and Furious movie where it's just like, which one are we on now? Oh, the one where we're
Yeah,
going to Mars. Oh, okay, let's do it. Let's see what this goes. Where this goes.
yeah. Did you hear that NASA is planning a mission to Mars?
Cool.
And I guess it's gonna be driven by nuclear fuel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What if it's all just a big giant scam and shit, and then it just like everything just runs off of banana peels and shit?
Yeah. It's just a big giant scam to get more of your taxpayer dollars so they can fund the
Carbon credit.
cronies.
But
Yeah.
it's funny, like me being the dickhead that I am, and just like always constantly going against the grain and shit. Like I went to MATC, a community college and shit. So like I was 29 at the time, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to take this one class where my one professor, she was a sweet lady. She's
Yeah.
probably about my at the time she was my age. Now she's probably about 35 or something like that, 36. But like she was a big giant humanitarian fucking nerd.
Yeah.
Like, we gotta save the goddamn koalas kind of shit. I'm like, yeah, I'm all for saving the koalas and shit. I'm all for saving the koalas, but like, goddamn, like, I'm trying to save myself right now. I can't do anything. The
Mm-hmm.
koala's he's gotta fight his own way out right now.
Yeah.
But she was a big humanitarian, and she was talking about like climate change and shit. And
Oh.
we were also talking about like Mars and shit because when the inner city school kids was just kind of like, hey, what do you think about Mars and shit? And she was just kind of like, oh, we'll get there eventually and shit like that. And I had told her that, Elon Musk had a pretty good idea was to use nuclear warheads to melt the polar ice caps, which would release oxygen into the system and create an ozone layer. Kind of like Total Recall. Remember Total
Yeah.
Recall? That was the
Yep.
point of Total Recall, to heat up the polar ice caps to create a
See you at the party, Richter.
yeah 2 weeks or the third boob.
Arnold's got the best one-liners, dog. Hands
Yeah.
down.
But I told her that Elon Musk had a pretty good idea to terraform Mars, and she's like, "What do you mean terraform?" And I go, "Well, essentially, like artificially create an atmosphere that's like you're turning it from inhospitable to hospitable."
Mm-hmm.
Artificial technology, otherwise, kind of like you're integrating a new technology in order to create an ozone layer or a bioatmosphere that you could survive yourself. You're terraforming it.
You know what
She
she
didn't
should
know
have
what
done?
that meant. I'm kind
You
of
know what
like,
she
well,
sh-
you're teaching the fucking class here, lady. What's wrong with you?
You should have came to class one day with a blown-up sandwich bag and handed it to her, and she would have been like, what is this?" And you should be like, "Here, I farted in this bag. I'm trying to save the planet. I don't know what to do with it."
Cow farts.
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
another thing. That's another thing, dog. There's farmers in like France that are putting diapers on their cows to regulate their farts.
well, I wouldn't be surprised. You got to remember in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome
Hmm.
with Master Blaster and shit. What did they rule? They ruled the methane from all the pigs farting and shit like that.
Yeah,
That's what everything. That's how electricity in Thunderdome was generated from all the pigs farting.
methane
So
is
like
pretty
that was the
valuable, dog.
currency, huh?
Methane is pretty valuable.
Yeah. Well,
A
so
lot of people
valuable. In
don't
fact,
know
the
that.
government is now saying you need to get rid of your natural gas stove and shit.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that, some of their communities are powered by methane.
Hey, I'm off for anything, but at the same time, stay the fuck away from my gun.
Stay away from my gun, stay away from my free will.
Yeah, stay away from my ball sack too. Don't touch it. Don't even look at it.
I'm already I'm castrated, dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to, otherwise I would have had more kids.
Yeah.
Not that it's a bad thing, but just,
Yeah. You
you
just
know,
don't want to end up like the
I
Wayans and shit where there's
I
like 10
I
of
planted
you.
I planted my seed. I planted
Yeah.
my seed and I've done my part.
Yeah.
I'm passing my genes on. Yes.
There you go. I would love to have kids. I just think a lot of women nowadays are just batshit crazy.
Well, you're dating a lot of psychiatrists, dog.
Yeah, I just had a date with a forensic psychologist. So I went from hairdresser. No, I went from nurse to hairdresser to therapist to forensic psychologist. So I'm kind of like I feel like I'm Alex Cross and like Kiss the Girls or fucking like Along Came a Spider where I'm like Morgan Freeman. I'm kind of moving
Sounds
up.
like you're trying to find yourself a sugar mama, dog.
I am. She got a government job.
Yeah. You're just trying to find yourself a sugar mama so we can keep doing these podcasts till we get like a Netflix deal or something, dog.
Shit, I'm gonna start Joe Biden and these fucking egg prices keep going up. I'm gonna start my own OnlyFans, only Dylan.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Motherfucker gotta eat.
what are you gonna do? Are you gonna do like a foot fetish thing or something or what?
Yeah, I'll just do like dirty toenails and shit, and like cleaning the bottom of my toenails out.
It's crazy because some people probably like that stuff, dude. It's so weird.
Yeah. What if I do my toenails as a makeover and shit, like, but it's like guy toenails, where it's like you clean them all out because they're all dirty and shit. And you scrape off all the callus, and then you end up painting them, making them all nice.
Somebody's like, "I'll pay you $10,000 to take that toenail and put it in your mouth and stick out your tongue with the toenail on it."
You know what? I just watched the other day. I watched Kingpin
Yeah.
with Bill Murray and shit.
Uh-huh.
I was laughing my ass off. There's a part in that movie where I think it's Randy Quaid breaks his hand and shit, and he's like, "Oh, I
Mhm.
can't hold the tournament."
Yeah.
So he's at the bar and shit, and Woody Harrelson's at the bar, and he's all like getting fucked up and plastered and shit.
What
And
are you looking at?
yeah, he looks at the dude next to him. Who you calling a psycho?
Yeah.
The guy's
Yeah.
like, I didn't say anything.
I like it when he's getting that interview by ESPN
Mhm.
and the guy's all like, "So what have you
What
been
have you
doing
been
all this time?" Drinking.
up to? He's
He's
like,
like, are you
drinking.
still drinking?" He's like, "Why are you buying?"
Yeah. He's like, what do you got going on? Nothing. Why, you buying?
Woody Harrelson's hilarious, dude.
Oh man, I haven't seen that movie in a minute. I usually watch that movie once a year and shit, but every time
Yeah.
I just my pants laughing.
Oh, that's my dad's
His
favorite movie, dude.
brother Hezekiah, Ishmael,
Yeah.
where he goes, he saws off the horse's shoes and shit. He's like, go
Yeah.
remove the horse's shoes, and he
Or
goes, yeah,
he
he
milked
goes,
the
yeah,
he,
he goes, oh, I took the pleasure of milking your cow for you. We
yeah.
don't have a cow, we got a bull.
We
He
got a
goes, I
bowl.
go brush my teeth. I go brush my teeth. He goes, I like when he saws off the horse's shoes and shit. And he goes, where do you
Mhm.
keep the new ones? And the horse is like 10 feet shorter. Dude, they don't make movies like that anymore, dude. It is,
No.
I was just
Never
telling,
mow another man's lawn.
yeah, me and my roommate Zach, dude, we were just busting out laughing. Because lately I've been on this binge lately where I just been watching these old school movies and shit. The
Yeah.
other day I watched Man's Best Friend. You ever seen that movie?
No.
It was made in like '93. It's like an old school scary movie where it's
Oh.
called Man's Best Friend, and essentially like they cybernetically like mixed a bunch of different animals into this fucking Saint Bernard. And the Saint Bernard goes,
Jesus.
yeah. So it has like the speed of a cheetah. You know what I mean? It can chameleon and shit.
So that sounds like the movie with Rob Schneider when he's like,
Yeah, the animal. Exactly.
yeah, the animal. Yeah.
Right.
But it,
That's a ripoff of this movie, Man's Best
yeah.
Friend. It's a Saint Bernard.
Mhm.
But you see the movie Friday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember when his dad is he's a dog catcher, right? His dad's a
Mhm.
dog catcher in the movie
Yeah.
Friday. In the movie Friday, his dad is on the bed watching Man's Best Friend. There's a scene in there where the dog is chasing the mailman and
Oh,
shit.
bite his ass, Mr. Postman. Beat your ass, Mr. Postman.
That's from that movie, Man's Best Friend.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's the movie where he bites him
Beat
in the leg
your
and shit.
ass, Mr. Postman.
Yeah. But I just been on this like big ass '90s binge of just watching like all these old school fucking movies, and I just been like losing it and shit because I'm just like God. I remember growing up to these movies and just like having a blast and shit. Now I
Yeah.
got like a remake of Ghostbusters and shit, and I'm like, what is this fucking garbage?
And they're gonna be doing a Bad Boys for Life 4. Bad Boys
What was
for
the last one
Life.
called? We know
Um
Slap.
uh Bad Boys for Life.
Yeah, Batter
But this
Boys.
one's gonna be Bad Boys with the number 4 and then Life.
Yeah, I gotta look up this one. Oh, you remember the last podcast we were talking about like those monkeys and how I was telling you like there was that movie I think it's called Project X where Matthew Broderick
Yeah.
is
And
like
then you were like, Amy.
yeah, the movie
Amy.
Chicago. So I figured out what the name of the movie was.
What
Where I
is it?
told you, like, there was a movie I remember where there was like a chimpanzee with the Oculus on, right?
Yeah.
And a pistol and shit. And he ended up going crazy. He ended up shooting people and shit, right? I finally figured out what the movie was. Lawnmower Man.
Lawnmower Man?
Yeah. Rewatch that movie, Lawnmower Man. The idiot retard in the movie, Lawnmower Man, he became friends with that fucking escaped monkey that ended up shooting people and shit. And then when the laboratory ended up finding the chimpanzee and shit because he was like protecting them because he's
Yeah.
he's retarded and shit. He ain't got no friends. But they ended up shooting the monkey and shit, and it devastated him and shit. But that's what the movie I was talking about last podcast. Like, I remember there's this movie where like this monkey fucking shoots people with the Oculus on it. That's what it was, Lawnmower Man.
Oh wow. Yeah, I'll have to check that out, dog. Amy.
Yeah, Congo, Amy,
Yeah.
Amy, hungry. You frightened her.
Oh, that shit's hilarious, dude.
But they don't make no goddamn good movies like Congo anymore and shit.
Oh,
Hey, what was some other good ass movies?
Anaconda.
Yeah, I just watched that a couple of days ago and shit.
What else
Creepy
is
ass. I
there?
never seen a creepier fucking like pedophile than John Voight in the movie. There's one scene where all of a sudden I think it's Jennifer Lopez. She's like washing herself off underneath the waterfall, and all of a sudden just cuts to fucking John Voight just being a creep. Like he's got this big scar.
Another good 90s movie I think I mean I like was Deep Blue Sea. That was
Oh, it
with
was Samuel Jackson with the
LL
shark.
Cool J and
Yeah,
Samuel
his little
Jackson.
parrot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a bunch of good movies back then. Deep
Pulp
Rising. You ever
Fiction.
seen Deep Rising?
Yeah.
Deep Rising with the octopus on the cruise ship and shit, where it's got like kills all the passengers and shit.
Yeah.
That's a good movie. And then Surf Ninjas. You can never go wrong with Surf Ninjas.
Is that with Leslie Nielsen?
Yeah, and Rob Schneider.
Yeah. I like
You know
that
what?
movie, dude.
I was telling my roommate, I was like, dude, I've been looking at I've been watching all these like old school fucking great movies on YouTube. YouTube has a bunch of free movies and they're great. I just got done watching Dracula Dead and Loving It with Leslie Nielsen. And I forget the part in that movie, but it's like where one of the girls gets turned into a vampire and shit. And she's trying to seduce one of the guys. And he's like, oh, I can't kiss you or whatnot. I'm British. And she goes, so are these. Dude, like, I was telling my roommate, I was like watching Dracula Dead and Loving It. I was like, there's no fucking way you can make a movie like this nowadays because it's just so, like, politically incorrect and shit.
There's Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Yeah. I watched Leslie Nielsen. Leslie Nielsen always had some great ones. Wrongfully Accused. The
Yeah,
one I
Wrongfully
one
Accused.
man.
All the Naked Guns.
Yeah.
If you remember the scene when OJ walks into the club and he can't fit through the door because his afro is too big.
Yeah. I always like the one where I think it might have been the first one or the second one where like he's got all those guns on him and shit, and all of a sudden he breaks in on him, and all of a sudden the guns start going off, and he shoots himself like 30 times, and they don't shoot him once.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh.
or,
Or there's that part where he's like that that Rocco guy gets ejected out of like the Oscars or whatever into that plane. He's like, Pap schmear?
yeah, perhaps, yeah. Or like, yeah, the same. I think that's the third one. What is it, like Naked Gun 33 and 1/3 or something?
Yeah, yeah. That
In
guy
that
was
one,
in Road Trip. That's another good one.
yep, I just got, dude, me and my roommate just got done watching Road Trip a couple of days ago, like 2 days ago. And we were laughing our asses off because it was so fucking funny. It's like, there's no way you can get away with that shit no more.
That guy when he does it the French toast,
Yeah. He
and
licks
then
it.
he eats it. He's like, "That's some good French toast."
Farts on it.
Yeah,
I like what his dad is like. He's like, just look how mad you are. I'm not mad.
he's
Yeah,
like,
look how red you are.
his dad's like, "We've been coming to this restaurant for 20 years,
You've only
and
been
we've
on.
only." Yeah, yeah. Oh, dude,
Or I like,
that's a movie that'd get frowned upon nowadays.
oh yeah,
That
there's
movie,
no way you can make that shit nowadays. My
yeah.
roommate was my roommate was dying laughing, Zach, because I was in the bathroom like brushing my teeth, get ready, or watching Road Trip, and all of a sudden it's Woody's got the big chick on the bed
Yeah.
and shit, and the whole bed is leaning. he's like he's like pushed up. Oh, dude, I was dying laughing and shit. He's like, I had sex with the girl.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude,
Or
like
there's
the '90s were so great for fucking movies.
oh yeah, dude. Yeah. The Wayans brothers with their movies, dude.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The 90s was unstoppable. The 80s was great for like action movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like when it was like Arnold and Sylvester Stallone. And
Seagal.
like the 80s was like where your one-liners were like big,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Well, there was Last Action Hero was like 93 or something like that. And
Yeah, '93.
there's a part in that movie where
That
it's
movie's the shit.
yeah, where Arnold goes up to that like that one bad guy. I forgot his name. He's like, "You killed Mozart." Guys are like, "Mo who?" And then Arnold's like, "Zot."
Or like, what is it, like the knockoff of Hamlet, where he plays Hamlet, and he's like, to be
Yeah,
or not to be, not to be, and then
not
he
to
shoots
be.
him with
Yeah,
the
yeah. Or
uh,
he bends over to that casket at that funeral, and he does, "Help me!" He's like, "This
oh
man is not dead."
my. Dude, there's so many fucking good things in it. Like, I always liked what was the guy with the hatchet or whatnot? He was like,
Oh
"You
yeah,
front,
yeah.
front, I don't like you." Like you're what ugly motherfucker, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
last
what
action
was
hero.
yeah.
Dude, my dad had
Dude,
used to have a pair of those same snakeskin cowboy boots. I thought they were so fucking badass back then because of that movie. Like I wanted to walk on top of cop cars and shit with them
dude,
snakeskin.
yeah.
Slater.
Yes, Slater. The steam coming out of the guy's ears because he's yelling so much.
Yeah,
Hiya, Toots.
I liked
That's crazy. They had Danny DeVito in there too.
yeah,
He
and the
played the cartoon
T1000.
character.
what's his name? Robert Patrick, the T-1000. He comes walking out of PlayStation. All of a sudden, the kid's like,
Yeah. And then it had Sylvester Stallone playing the Terminator at the Blockbuster.
Yep. And I think Sharon Stone also makes a cameo in that movie from Basic Instinct and shit. She comes out of the police station.
Yeah, great
But I
times
think
in the 90s, dude.
yeah, one of the best quotes of that movie was he's like, "Where you going? Got to catch the red eye." And he just starts like nose diving off of buildings. He kills the guy with the ice cream cone. Yeah, what great fucking movies. What's another great, like, underrated movie in the 90s? Time Cop?
What's it called?
Time Cop?
Time Cop.
With Van Damme?
Judge Dredd.
Yeah, that's another good one.
What's the other sci-fi movie that he did, that Sylvester Stallone did?
Cliffhanger, that was like 93, I think.
Yeah, Cliffhanger. Then Ace Ventura did a spoof off of Cliffhanger with the raccoon.
Yeah, with the raccoon.
Yeah.
Come on, little buddy.
The Ace Venturas were good.
Well, essentially, Jim Carrey owned the 1994-95 era.
Yeah. Dumb and Dumber.
Mm-hmm. I just rewatched all the Austin Powers. Those are funny.
Yeah, those are good ones too.
Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah, other than like conspiracies and shit. I don't know. Well, that does it for this episode of Truth Over Facts podcast. Next episode, we'll have to talk a little bit more truth and a little bit less facts.
Yeah, true that, dog. True that.
I'm your host, Dylan, and that's Ron Dog, and we will catch up with you later.
Yep. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.